Hey everybody, today is November 13th, 2023. I'm Gene, and welcome to the Monday edition of Hanging with Uncle. Have a really interesting topic for you guys, so I hope you follow along, and if you have any questions at all during this, please leave them in the comment section, and I'll be happy to reply to any questions or comments that you have. So before we get started, please hit that subscribe button. We're really trying to grow our channel. And hit that thumbs up, hit that like button. It lets everybody know that we exist out there. And hit that notification bell on the far right. And it lets you know whenever we go live and put new content out there. So, having said all that, I think today's conversation is very important because I'm glad we have a viewpoint to talk about this with from my man on the street. Welcome back to the show, Brent.
Hey, great to have me again, Gene. And man, I'm real excited to talk about this today. People got to understand why there's supposed to be a separation between church and state, and what the role of organized religion does to people, and how it could be used as a tool to divide. Not just, it could be used either way, to unite or divide. And lately, all you see is like division techniques. And yeah, we need to get into it, man.
So, just before we get started, because I think it's important to always start from a level playing field, that we're coming from the same set of facts or viewpoints, or at least understanding where each other's coming from. So, my interpretation of organized religion is that cult mindset that tells you, oh, you have to think this way if you want to be a part of us, or this is the right way to believe if you want to enter the promised land. But to me, the problem with that is, and I've said it over and over again, tries to impose somebody else's will over somebody else's. And my example of that, if you and I are hungry and I want a hot dog and you want a cheeseburger, well, who am I to impose my will to say, no, you can't have a cheeseburger, you have to have a hot dog? And that's my kind of third grade understanding of organized religion, and at least to where it is right now in this country. What do you think, Brent?
Yeah, it seems like the way religion should be set up is for people to explore what the higher power is. And you have free will to go ahead and decide whether what your belief is and how your understanding of what God is. But once it becomes organized, it becomes like a business. And once it becomes a business, people could monopolize that and monetize that to go ahead and take over that message. And I started seeing a weakening of what we consider to be religion again. Right about 1980, it started getting really bad. We were at about 94%, 90% Christian in 1960. But that was organized. It was very organized. And we weren't any better than we are today. And today we're at 60%. So when I started seeing a downfall is there was a little reprieve for a while. It seemed like in the 70s there was a little bit of a spiritual awakening, and then it started getting gloomy again. It started getting gloomy again right about when Reagan came in. They started to go ahead and get this evangelical movement going on, and TV personalities, cults of personalities started taking over our stations. People were used to having cable TV, having hundreds of channels to choose from, and a lot of
Right,
those
Brent.
channels.
I'm sorry, I don't mean you. You always say something that makes me have a comment or at least ask a question of you. So the way you just described it, I feel is exactly the same way I see it. And if I can like just kind of give an example, it's like a fork where you have the handle, right? And that's who's controlling everything. And then you have the tines on the other end. And like you said, back in the 80s, it came to that narrative of we need to go back to our Christian roots. And that sounds really good, but if you look at the history of our country, there's nothing Christian about the foundation of this country when you think of genocide of the indigenous people that were here and slavery for the first 100 years of this country. So there's nothing Christian about the roots of that. And then you also talked about free will. And I think organized religion doesn't respect you having your free will. You have to adopt the way they tell you to think. And I think abortion is a very good point on that. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I mean, so back in 1960, it was, the civil rights movement. Now I think it's a movement, this abortion movement is now the hot topic in 2020 and the way women are portrayed, which are usually sinful. Most of the times when and really women should be in control of their own bodies and have the free will to choose how to keep their body healthy.
Without a doubt.
People don't, people don't understand that a lot of the right wing kind of Christian movement considers to have abortion. The left has abortions all the way up to week 40 or whatever.
Right.
But this is not something that happens. I mean, people aren't trying to rip out babies after 27 weeks. There's laws against that. It's a good law. They understand. Unless there's a real bad medical emergency, there's certain rules in place to go ahead and protect the right to life, but it's also the right to choice, the right to go ahead and have your choice in the matter, and not to weaponize it against you. So there's nothing that says in the Bible. I don't think I don't remember anything in the Old Testament talking about abortion or anything like that.
It's not mentioned one time.
Huh?
Abortion's not mentioned one time in the Bible.
No, and there was problems with with like miscarriages. There was people were working and different things were happening back in the old times, and there was still a whole sort of problems that occurred with that. But the problem is there's always a hot issue topic to go ahead and try to rile up people to go ahead and kind of herd them back into church.
Okay.
Church should be about light.
I have a question for you, Brent. Man, you do this to me every time, man. So again, here's another negativity that I think organized religion pushes. It favors discrimination because of what they believe. And I'm looking at Webster's, I'm looking at my phone at the dictionary, and it says that discrimination is the act or practice of instance of discriminating categorically rather than individually, and categorically against women and their reproductive rights is discriminatory because there's no legislation or even protest outside doctors' offices, urology offices, for men and their reproductive rights. We can go get as much Viagra as we want. If we want a vasectomy, we can go get that. Where's the protest? So to focus this abortion rights strictly on women is discriminatory, because if life begins at conception, conception cannot happen unless there's ejaculation. So why aren't we protesting men if we're so pro-life?
It's not well men don't want to go ahead and point the fingers at each other. It's always about original sin and what Eve has done, what ISIS is from ancient Egypt. She's a woman there. There's always been demonizing of women and what they consider to be a minority. But when you look at it now, this is causing a lot of sentiment and people rallying behind political causes. So now it's building more of a pushback, let's say a liberal pushback in northern states, but then the southern states are becoming more entrenched in it, or of taking away these rights. So it's doing exactly what they know it was going to do, basically, by bringing this up. They knew that this is going to be a trigger to like divide us. They have plenty of practice doing this. They understand that if we're divided, we don't really see what is really going on. We get so enwrapped in our little fights, our little skirmishes between black and white and Republican, Democrat, and all that. But we are getting targeted right now to set us up for something really bad, I believe. So we got to go ahead and come together more. But, when I look at down south, man, there were so many things that was going on. Like, when I moved down to Tennessee, I actually I went down there to push back, to start my investigation. I knew I had to go down by Pulaski, Tennessee. And I think we should talk about what is the religious right and how what people's mindset is kind of down in those areas right now. Because people got to understand that is not Christian. Some of these values that are going on, just because people are saying that God wants this or God wants that, if they're doing it to divide us and to go ahead and monetize it off us, then this is not the light you need to look out to search for.
Did I tell you about the time I was driving through Tennessee?
No, tell me about it.
This was about 2003, 2004, somewhere in that ballpark. And I'm going through, headed to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And, stopped at this gas station to get gas. And, I always go to the restroom when I go to the gas station because I hate having to pull over, so I just do it all at one time.
Sure.
And I go to wash my hands, and right there on the counter next to the sink is this card holder full of business cards advertising recruiting for the KKK. And dude, this is on a gas station right off I-40 in Tennessee.
Yeah.
No, how Christian it is.
Yeah, and that is, it's kind of funny when you look at those I-40 passages and 65 and some of those roads. You always see the church up on the hill, but then right next to the darn thing is the strip joint or the sex toy place, and it's like such a schism down there. It doesn't seem like it's almost real at times when I was down there. It was such a big divide where people were saying they were Christian, but then I didn't see anything going on around me that I understood to be Christian. I just seen a lot of hateful people. And then there was some good people down there. I'm not saying it was all bad, but from me traveling all over the country, I was so worried when I went down there. I went down there following a Michigan militia lead down there. He said that people were building down there by the birthplace of the KKK in Pulaski, which is also one of the centers of the Zionist movement. The KKK, you gotta understand, is basically mainly the Germanic movement, but there's also a Catholic movement down there, which is more the Knights of Columbus. But down south, it was more in that area. It was a very old area. It was a lot of Irish people. Then down by Columbia was more Germanic. But when we talk about Germans and what Zionists are, because people understand Zionists now because of what is going on in Israel right now. But there's Zionist movements that are just bent on the end of days. And if you think the end of days is going to happen at any minute, well, what does it matter? You could always repent later, or you can, if you got to need the end of days to happen before the second coming comes. So that's how twisted some of the religions get in that.
Hold on, like we got an F-35 flying overhead.
They're on to us.
Flight path of a local Air Force base here. Okay, no, I'm glad you mentioned that, and I, again, didn't mean to cut you off, but it just brings me to the question of, in your travels, like you said, when you went down to Tennessee, what do you think the chances are of these right-wing evangelical churches being nothing but armories stockpiling weapons?
Well, that's exactly what some of them were. And they go out and they target practice together. The guns and the NRA and religion is so intertwined down there that they think that the only way they could defend themselves from the apocalypse is by being heavily armed.
Right.
So that's the only way to bring about the end of days is actually for a spark to happen. And they keep on waiting. There's been one doomsday cult after another cultivated in America and left to breed. There always should have been a separation of church and state. But by not having a separation of church and state, people could make money off the chaos. And when I was down there, I'll give you an example. So Columbia, I was in Columbia, which is mainly the main Zionist movement was Mount Pleasant, the next town over. There's a little Zionist down in Pulaski, the KKK area. Then there's the town just east of that. I forgot the name of that right now. But when I was down in that area, it was on the Duck River. I know a lot of fishing guides, river guides. It's the business I was in. So there was a kid that came in from out of state, and he heard about a new temple, a new Christian movement happening down there. And I was like, oh shit. And he seemed nice. And I met him, but he was a little slow. He was on his bike, looking around, trying to find the right church to go to. So I heard some guys talking about running him off the road or something like that happening. And so I heard the next day that some truck hit him on the road. It was trying to go to a church. So he told me he got, he was on the side of the road. He wasn't on the road at all. And some truck just came up and whacked him and basically left him for dead. So I'm looking at this guy, and he's really hurt. And I feel bad. He's like maybe 22, 23. So I knew who the guys were talking. They were in our camp. So I went and confronted them right away. I had me and one of the guys that owned the river company next to us. We came down and just talked to these guys. Basically ran these meth heads out of that damn camp. And that's the problem, too, down there. There's a bridge down there called Graffiti Bridge, which they're actively selling meth right underneath this bridge. There's these areas that are wildernesses. There's BLM lands. But in Tennessee, you have the Tennessee River and Water Authority lands. It's kind of like BLM lands. You could have dispersed camping for up to 14 days. And those are areas where the chaos breeds because the drugs kind of gets a sense of imbalance in your community. So now get back to Columbia, the town.
I just want to clarify because, I don't want people to think you mean Black Lives Matter. We're talking about Bureau of Land Management, correct?
That is correct. That's what it is. Land management. But that happens on national forest lands, too. There's dispersed camping. You can't stay in one area for more than 14 days, but some areas people stay on there basically for as long as they want until they get written up. And that's how a lot of these areas are. They're staked out. You got dealers staking out claims of areas, and they're down there. So how bad is it? Well, I was in Columbia, and the last governor of Tennessee, not the present governor, but the last governor, he came from Columbia, Tennessee. And he had a cousin or a family member that ran the Baskin Robbins. Baskin Robbins is an ice cream parlor. He was openly selling drugs out of the ice cream shop. People all over the community knew about it. When the governor finally got out of office, the cops went up and tried to clean out the ice cream joint. It's still open. Another company took it over, whatever. But it was just crazy that was left to happen and breed to begin with. But that is how the cycle works. Because you need people that are causing the chaos, looking for drugs, stealing from the community and all that. They actually help fund the police because now they're getting involved in it. But then that actually funds a lot of the prison systems down there.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay,
because you again struck a chord when you said Bureau of Land Management because memory serves me correct, that was exactly what the Bundys were doing, claiming, their cattle could be on Bureau of Land Management and nobody could tell them they couldn't be on it. Is it like standard practice for areas that are under BLM control? Is this a haven for these right-wing or, terrorist organizations or organized religious organizations to practice their anti-government beliefs, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the Western lands are like that. There was a lot of movements in the 2000s and 2010s where they started to monopolize that, like you're saying. It happened some places out east, but out west, you got to understand, you have a lot more bigger tracts of federal land than you do. Out east is very divided, smaller little pieces and parcels. Out there, it's pretty much the law of the land. And it depends on the state now, too. So, yes, the federal government could go ahead and enforce laws anywhere in the country, but then they usually work with local law enforcement. So some areas are prone for more lawlessness. So they actually advertise on dark webs and different chat rooms about what areas are better, and they basically set up shop. But it isn't just the religious organizations; it's pure terror groups training on these lands too, because they know that in order for the police force to come out and break up a group of 1,000 people, you need a heavy presence, and you're going to see that coming. Yeah. So they understand they got a little bit more rain out there, and they got a little bit more what I call line of sight. You have indirect. I'm sure you understand that from being a police officer. Oh, so in big open valleys, you can see a whole parade of cars coming your way. If it depends on the topology and the type of terrain that you're in at the time. But there's also scouts. So there was scouts that were scouting for at least a guy underneath the graffiti bridge, it was called. And you can look that up on the Duck River and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's a place for staying out there. But it was Go ahead, buddy.
Oh, all right, so I was going to say, I noticed with the Bundy thing, you're talking about, the scouts, that's wide open, flat desert land. And those guys they were all armed with military style assault weapons. And that's one of the reasons the federal government did not engage. They didn't want another Waco situation. But these groups that are armed like this, obviously anti government, what is their ultimate goal? And are they part of this evangelical movement?
Some of them are, and some of them aren't. It depends. Most of the people that are causing that type of trouble, probably, that are organized like that. There could be some in certain cliques, but I think they're just more pure chaos. They don't even care about the religious part of it. They're just fundamentally trying to prepare for war because that's all they've been trained to do all their lives. You know, it,
We only have a few minutes left, and I know we didn't talk about this, but I'm going to spring it on you. I apologize beforehand. Just to talk about organized religion, I know that you had an idea, a brainchild about a non-denominational project that you wanted to work on. Are you still working on that? And do you want to let everybody know what it's about?
yeah, so, I had a refugee project going on for a while, and it's a global refugee project. Basically, we're trying to combine the tons together to go ahead and be not in a state of constant war. And instead of like dwelling on our uh, dwelling on our differences, we're engaged by our similarities because there's a lot of similarities between the religions. Maybe not the organized religions, but the religions in general. How they talk about stories of great floods. They talk about seeking out a higher power, which they define to be whether it's Buddhist, Allah, to whatever it is. So we have a global engagement chat that we have people from all over the globe trying to work on this, basically. So we reach out to different churches to help out at times it needs. Like one of the things that just happened recently is a Jehovah Witness gathering got bombed in India, and we had a person in our group that knew about it as it was happening. So we know to reach out right away to try to get people together to get on a common ton with each other. Because that's what it's going to take. It's not going to take us being organized against each other. It's going to be us organized together as a unit to go in and push back on hate. And
I
put.
agree. We have to push back on hate, and I'm just going to give you like one of my favorite, or not so much favorite, but I think important takeaways that I live my life by. And we look at Moses and we hear, the law of Moses and the Ten Commandments, that he got, from Mount Sinai. But we always forget about Matthew in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, where Jesus Christ tells us right before they murder him that I give you this last commandment, to love one another as I have loved you. And I think that concept has been lost on organized religion because how did he love us? All you have to do is, read your gospel, read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, where he walked the earth and what he did and how he practiced and what he preached. And, that's just my opinion on where I think organized religion falls short and gets it wrong. And I'll give you the last word on that.
Yeah, I wish, I don't define my higher power, and a lot of people think agnostic means I don't believe. No, I believe in it all. I believe that religion and God is a good thing. You should have a belief and a structure of a family belief in each other. So the only way to get to that point would be to actually have dialogue with each other. But you're not going to do that by following somebody and just by following the group that's already in front of you. If there's already chaos happening in your community and it's been continually going on, maybe you need to try something different. Maybe there's a problem in your community. Maybe you need to look a little bit bigger than just where you're at. And that's where it comes into a global thing. It's a global mindset, basically, when it comes down to understanding what your higher power is. And that's only going to come by honest communication and being able to communicate with each other. Because there's a lot of groups that are trying to get us back in our lane, I try to say. They want to have Christians and Jews here and Islam and Buddha, and then all our countries, I'm Ukrainian or, whatever. The more pride you have in your little speck of land, you're missing the bigger point. It's not just your little speck of land, because we've been traveling all over the place. We're from so many different. I like to say this. I'm from 1,000 different women, from 1,000 different armies, from 1,000 different tribes. So I'm from all over the place. We're all wanderers, trying to understand each other and how we all fit into each other.
Yeah.
So that's what we got to get doing again. Is we got to go ahead and understand that it's not just about what's going on here in front of you. Look at everyone around you. It's not a threat, but as a connection.
Thank you. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for tonight. I want to thank you again, Brent, for being on the show. Great conversation, a lot to think about, very poignant conversation. We do need to come together. And I just want to say, as always, thank you for listening. Be kind to one another and treat each other the way you want to be treated. Okay, so thank you very much, and we'll see you on Wednesday. Good night, everyone. Good night, Brent.
Good night, man.